Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 6 Feet Under Exhumed. I am Kari Northey, the Mortician. I keep messing up our intro. I don't know who I am. I am Kari Northey, and I am Kari the Mortician.
Both of those are true. I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. We're doing season 2, episode 6 today, titled "In a Place of Anger," and it starts out on a boat, which is some kind of corporate party. And there's a couple talking, and this man comes up to them, and he's obviously had some drinks, and he's
Yeah.
pretty negative about the company and things. They end up walking away. He drops his drink over the side and ends up just going over the side of the boat himself, presumably getting sucked under the boat. And as we find out later, like basically cut in half or something by the
Yeah.
propeller.
Bye-bye,
So,
Matthew
yeah.
Collins.
Yep.
Yes. So they are, that is his end. It's very quick, brief, and then we'll get back to him here in a little bit because we dive this episode, unlike the last one where he had bits and pieces of storylines where Joelle joined us, the Grave Woman. We're now going to dive into some of the relationships deeper. We do have some good funeral home stuff, but we do dive into all these relationships and like Brenda and Nate. So they had been on a bit of a stretch of not having sex, not being intimate, because kind of after the Billy thing, when she had to check him into the hospital, she kind of went into this depression and pushed Nate away a bit. And they finally kind of get back to being intimate and everything, which after they got engaged. And so that is a good thing, I think, for them. Maybe we'll see.
They're
Yeah.
going to go have dinner and tell Nate's family. Brenda's pretty weird about telling her own family. She doesn't want to tell
Yeah.
them. And,
About the
you know, I
engagement.
mean,
Yeah.
I get it. Having seen her family, her mom will probably shit on it, and who
Yeah.
knows where her dad is, and her brother is in the hospital, and I think that he's liable to do anything, about something that upsets him. So it makes sense, but it's kind of sad, that for whatever reason, her family isn't one that is going to be celebrating it.
Yeah.
And she feels already that Ruth hates her and kind of doesn't really want to make a big announcement deal about it because she just doesn't feel like anybody's going to be particularly happy for them. And that's pretty sad to feel that way, I think.
It's very sad.
Yeah, but they're going to go over to dinner at Ruth's house and announce this at the dinner. So Ruth's sister shows up.
Well, first go back just
Okay.
a sec because it starts in the morning. So this is the morning and you see like Brenda and Nate are having sex. We see Dave gets up with the boy that he's dating, the man that he
Yeah.
has gone on a few dates with. Seems like they have a good connection. They seemingly like each other. I'm sure they could go on to live a lovely life together that would be very like, hi honey,
Very boring.
vanilla kind of
Yep.
life. As we said in the last one, like Eddie and Keith could live a very vanilla life and be content, and Dave and this guy could live an okay life and be content. But you kind of see that Dave's not fully into it. But anyway, this guy leaves. He walks in, and Russian, whatever his name is,
Nikolai.
Nikolai is sitting at the breakfast table, acting as if he's there every morning, and
Yeah.
they're like, huh. And Ruth's like, well, why didn't you invite your friend in? And Dave's like, yeah, no, no, no.
No, so Nikolai has pretty much not moved in, but he's very much acting like they're
Very
all one.
casual with
Yeah,
his.
like they're one big happy family, and you can see everybody's just like, what is he
He
doing?
says almost something that's like parental to, I can't remember
Yeah.
what he says and to who. And they kind of all look at him like, yeah, no, not
Mhm.
no, you just keep that to yourself. It's just
Yeah.
weird. And then, yes, so then Ruth's sister just comes and I thought when her and Claire went to visit that lady and her daughter, remember those kind of over the top?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was thinking that was her sister, but that was a cousin.
No, that's her cousin.
Yeah. And so we meet this sister who perfect person for this casting part. I mean, looks very much like she could be her sister.
Yeah.
Perfect personality for the role that they've written. She's the easy breezy hippie
Yep.
kind of person. And
Just the opposite of Ruth.
yeah,
Yep.
it's a little
And
wild.
she's coming because Ruth had made a phone call to her when she was doing the plan about, forgiving people. And so her sister shows up unannounced, and Ruth is surprised to see her. They've been estranged. It doesn't really say how long, but they've been estranged. And her sister wasn't there when her husband died. I know that.
No, she did not come back. And she kind of apologizes, but she doesn't really, oh, no. She had been traveling,
Yeah.
wherever Panama, or I don't know where she said and it's like, well, why
Someplace.
didn't you just fly home? Like, it's just weird, I guess.
Yeah.
But so we kind of learned that she's there and she's going to be there for this dinner. But in
Mhm.
the course of this whole morning and everything, they have an intake, which have you ever heard a funeral home call
Ever.
an intake?
Ever, never, not once. I don't know. I just call it an arrangement.
Which, funeral arrangement, like if you go Google funeral arrangement, you're going to see
You're
flowers.
going to see flowers.
So but you hate to call it a meeting because that sounds very
An
businesslike.
appointment. I don't know. I hate the term arrangement conference too. I don't like that.
Planning session. Like, what would be
Just an
what do you guys
appointment, I
want it called?
guess. I
You
don't
guys
know.
tell us, what
Yeah.
do you think it should be called? But an intake is
That's not
weird.
it.
Like going to get the deceased and bringing them. And yeah, it's
That's not a word I've ever heard used
no,
anywhere.
in intake. Not, yeah, it's weird. So they say we have an intake, and so they go to meet this woman, and she's just like, they said, so would you like to be having an open casket? And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, my husband was in the water for days and he got ran over by a propeller. Like, there's nothing to view. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, we didn't. They kind of asked a question before understanding the situation.
That's bad business. You need to call the coroner before you meet a
Yes.
family. You should never meet a family without knowing what the person looks like.
No.
Their condition ever. And that can mean you call the coroner's office, you call I don't know where the organ donation,
Somebody,
organization,
something.
you go down to your care center and look at them, you call your central prep place and call your trades or whoever it is. You should never walk unless they are a walk-in family and you weren't expecting them. And even then you step out and you
Figure out the scenario.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was kind of like we didn't know. And she just is very abrupt and, everything's so pricey and I don't know, I'm going to need to think about this. And that's a lot of money. And she kind of just leaves a bit abruptly. And then they get a
Mhm.
call that, he's going to be transferring to the Kroehner funeral home. So Kroehner has kind of undercut them.
This is backwards. It's not, in my opinion, the corporations undercutting the independents undercutting the corporations. That's how that works, at least in my experience. You're not going to find $1 billion corporation undercutting your prices by $500 to get a call. They don't need to do that. And they're not going to do that.
Unless they're just spitefully going after one place, which is what I think they intend us to think.
I think that's what they think, but that's not, I just don't think that's really, I don't know. Maybe that's happened. I'm not saying it hasn't, but this is a really exaggerated storyline about corporate funeral homes and independent funeral homes. There's absolutely stuff there. I don't even want to say competition, but there's absolutely feelings there about, corporate funeral homes versus independent funeral homes, sure. But I think it's almost like it's really going extreme about this corporation, like just being so sleazy and so awful that they're doing all these things. I would never, it would very, very, very much surprise me if a corporation tried to steal a call from somebody, over $500. Like that's just not, it just doesn't happen. But on the inverse, I think it's far more common for an independent funeral home to lower their prices to, beat out a corporate funeral home. I think that's
Try
the
and
way it
keep a
goes.
call. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you've got this scenario where, oh, great, now we're losing this call to somewhere else and, they're going to get it. And so they decide they're going to get dirty. And so they're like, you call her and you get that call back.
Absolutely not. Don't ever do that.
So they call her and are like, well, we'll match or
Never.
we'll have you pay less than them. And then they show a scene where they're back sitting there and she's like, well, I'm only here because you were cheaper. So let's do this kind of thing, and it's like, what just happened?
Absolutely never. I know it happens. I'm told it happens, but I've never done it. And I've never really seen it, honestly. And I would never, ever, if I owned a funeral home, I do not need your business that bad that I'm going to be doing that kind of crap.
Well, and
it's bad that makes you look bad. That's bad. It's just bad for everybody. There's no reason to do that.
Well, and that's why the FTC was created. The Federal Trade Commission back in 1984 said, hey,
rule, yeah.
You can't do this. You can't make up prices and tell a family. Like everyone has to have a price list that is laid out the same way with the same specified things on it, the same disclosures, so that a family can make good valued choices based on where they want to be and on the cost without having to run between like this poor woman has done and everybody undercutting each other. There are people who will match prices to other places.
Sure, and that's okay. The FTC funeral rule does not say that you can't offer a discount or whatever, but you do have to have a general price list that is laid out in a very specific way with certain disclosures and itemizations and all kinds of things on it for price transparency to the families that do call you. It doesn't say that you can't give them a discount or offer you can do those things as a business, but this idea that funeral homes are stealing calls from each other back and forth, I don't know, maybe, but shouldn't that's just bad.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
We go back, so they do that, and from that interchange, we'll talk about the dinner here in just a minute, but Dave and Nate kind of step aside and they have this discussion about dealing with the emotions of serene families because Nate is realizing that when you're meeting families, you take in some of that emotion and their loss, and you're hearing these stories and the best analogy, did you ever see The Green Mile?
Yeah.
And there's days where I feel this and I tell Josh I'm having a Green Mile day.
Oh.
Where the black guy, he goes and he breathes in illness and stuff, and it's like this black cloud and it goes into him and kind of toxifies him and weakens him because he's trying to take on this stuff from other people. And there's so many days that I just picture kind of that scene when he does that, because he goes to Tom Hanks' wife's spoiler, and she's got cancer, she's dying, and he pulls this out of her and he goes back and, I'm tired. He says, I'm tired, and stuff to Tom Hanks. It's just such a sad, that movie just wrecked me. My gosh, that wrecked me. But I think of that, and that in this role, we have to take in and just kind of carry it. And sometimes it's heavy burden and sometimes it is a lot. And so they're having this discussion about how to carry it. And Dave says, it does not get easier. It just gets more familiar.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like there are some lines in this show that they really nailed it with some of the mentality of the funeral director in some ways.
Absolutely. And people, maybe they assume that we know how to handle these things or we know all these things, but we don't know any better than anybody else. And so people ask me a lot of questions. And I like to respond by saying, I don't know. I've never been dead. And I've never, like we don't know any more about death, dying, grief, or anything than anybody else than your dad who works at the factory or your mom who's maybe nobody. We don't know anything more or better inherently. We do, recently, and this is very recently in the industry, have more access to education and information about burnout, compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, PTSD, all of these things. But a person that's drawn to funeral service or goes into funeral service, there's nothing inherent about the job where we know how to handle these things any better than anybody else. We do not. I have no words of and that's something I had to get over as a funeral director. And I've had to tell students and graduates that too. Your job isn't to make it better for them. Like there's nothing I can say. There's no amazing words of wisdom or anything that I can say to anybody that is not just something I'm regurgitating that I've heard somewhere,
Yeah.
because I am not a expert in grief. We are not. We are funeral directors. And there are people that are experts in grief, and those are the people that need to, be consulted and do that. But the funeral director making the arrangements, embalming the body, cremating, doing those things, we're really not the people that have any more knowledge about grief, death, or dying than anybody else. Truly, it's really a different thing.
I think it is just that it becomes familiar. It becomes
Yeah.
an everyday that we talk to
We
someone.
become more comfortable talking about it.
Yep. And
Sure.
it's a common story. It's
Yeah.
a common tale that we just seem to hear over and over in a different version. And so it's like watching so I'm trying to think of an emotional movie like A Walk to Remember or,
Yeah.
Terms of Endearment, any of these movies that are very emotional at the end. And, you watch those and you feel these big emotions and you cry. But after you've watched it 10 times, you're not going to feel that same big, huge,
Right.
emotional
Yeah.
reaction. You may not cry anymore after several times. Same thing. I mean, that really is the way
Yeah.
we
That's a good
become
analogy.
familiar with the feelings we go through working with families. And
Yeah.
I love that. Like, that's the best way to explain it I have ever heard when it comes to our emotions and things. And so they have that discussion after that arrangements, but they have this dinner and Ruth's sister, all I could think was I would kill my sister. She's like,
You would? I love her. I want to be her.
I do, but when you're Ruth and you're not
Yeah, when
very
you're Ruth,
confident,
yeah.
and your sister who's like showing her belly and she's sitting there with the guy you're kind of dating, getting drunk with him and
That's fine.
touching him a lot.
Fine. The less I got to do.
I feel like I would be like, girlfriend, like I haven't seen you in forever. You just rolled up in my place. You're touching my man. You're getting drunk with him. Like, what is your intention? If they had like a really close relationship, that's one thing. But I think that in this scenario, I would have been a bit, and then they announce this engagement, and everybody's like, "What in the hell?" And then Ruth gets upset, and
I can see why Ruth would be uncomfortable with the way her sister's behaving because of yeah,
Ruth,
how
for being
Ruth is.
Ruth.
Yeah, I don't think that. And again, I don't know. Maybe I'm less Ruth and more. I don't know. I'm neither one of them, but I don't know. I wouldn't be that offended. Or what would bother me is if people were in my house and not helping me make dinner, not helping me clean up, just expecting me to be everybody's waitress. That would make me mad.
Very true.
But
And that's kind of how they act with Ruth.
and that's true. So you're right. And I guess it comes out at this dinner that so the Aunt Sarah, she and Claire kind of bond a little bit over art, and Claire like has this artistic ability, and Sarah's an artist and all this, and so they talk a lot about that. And I think Ruth may be a little bit jealous of the fact that they're connecting in a way different than, and a mother and a daughter, I'm sorry, you can have the best relationship. You're always going to be just their mom. And maybe they love you. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? You're like, the way the relationship you can have with an aunt is different than with your mom. It just is.
Well,
And
especially at that age.
totally.
I think too.
And so I think because Ruth and Claire don't have a great relationship, and Ruth wants a relationship with Claire, and she sees her so easily, take to Sarah and have these conversations and stuff, she's jealous of that and hurt by that, that makes sense to me. And then Sarah invites Claire to her home to visit and all this. And it comes out that Ruth is one of the issues between the sisters is that when Nate was 15, he and David went to spend some time with their Aunt Sarah at her home. Nate ended up losing his virginity to a 32-year-old woman, which is crazy. I mean, I would be upset about that too. Yes. And David got lost in the canyon overnight, and like So Sarah is not the same kind of protective or responsible or whatever what you want to call it person as Ruth is. And she felt that Sarah kind of let her down in, taking care of her kids or watching her, whatever it was. And so now she's not really wanting to see, Claire do anything with her and all of that. So all those things come out, and then it turns into how Sarah didn't help with the legless grandmother, and so they've got issues. And
Big
again,
issues.
like most
Yeah.
families, you have the same issues that just manifest in a million different scenarios. And so it's Sarah's there being kooky and irresponsible, and everybody loves it.
Yep.
But Ruth has to deal with the real, stuff.
Yes. And
that's what
then,
it's about.
and Nate doesn't tell her that he's going to propose. And I think that just is like the tipping. And so she gets very upset, and Nikolai comes in the kitchen, and it is a very sweet moment.
It
And he like
is. And
holds her, and you can see how
yeah,
much he kind of cherishes her,
it
which
does.
I've always just wanted to be cherished and like by a man. And so I think it's
Right.
sweet that he's
Oh, and
like
he tells her he's going to help her clean up, which is exactly the right thing to say.
he just for being as cantankerous of a dude as he is sometimes, like
The
he's
softie.
sweet and gentle with her, and
He is.
it's nice. And so they kind of have this, and then after the dinner, Nate's kind of picking up the kitchen or the table, and Ruth is like, why didn't you ask me for grandma's ring? And he's like, I didn't even know that was an option, Mom. Like, and she's like, well, David's obviously not going to use it, and gosh knows what Claire's going to do. So why didn't you ask me if she's so special to you? Why didn't you ask me for that?
Why didn't you tell me it existed?
And he's like, I didn't even know. Like, how would I know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of well, if you would share with me because I'm your mother, then we would know these things. And I think she keeps having these moments like, if you would just share with me, then you guys would be part of everything with me. And it just gets her really frustrated. And but she doesn't know how to connect, but she's upset that they're not connecting. So she
and I mean, I get it, and you remember she's a more traditional person. And again, this is 25 years ago, but even then, Nate's still 35 years old. The idea of having to go and asking your parents or talking to anybody's parents, before proposing to them is, I don't know. I mean, feel how you want, but I guess I kind of feel like at that age, you're not kids starting life. You've lived basically a whole life. And if you want to get married to somebody or propose to them, you don't need to tell your parents or ask them for permission or any of those things. So it's not inappropriate in any way that there was no discussion with parents before this happened.
Such a traditionalist.
Which she is. And it's the first one of her children that I guess David was engaged to that woman briefly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so, that.
But did David use that ring? Did David?
Well, we did. There's no telling. We don't know. So
weird.
I think that she just wants to be involved in their lives and all this. And so, and he makes a comment about, I know you don't think Brenda's right for me, but I do. So, and she doesn't really say anything back. So, I mean, it's weird too. And again, at that age, I kept thinking throughout this dinner, I don't know at that age. I guess, if I met Cece and I have been together a long time, but if I met somebody new and was, in that kind of serious relationship, how much would I care what their parents thought of me or didn't? Like I would obviously
care 120%. Like
I would make the effort to have a good relationship with them and all this, but it wouldn't be central to my mind because I'm a grown person, kind of with my own stuff going on. And I certainly don't want a bad relationship with anybody I'm seeing's parents. Nobody wants that. But I don't think at this age, I'm 41, that I would go way out of my way to, impress or please somebody's parents. I would be more like, oh, they'll come around. They'll see I'm fine after time. Like I don't need the validation from somebody's parents at this age, but I do understand why it's important. I'm not saying I would just like write them off, but so it's important to you.
Yeah. I'm such like my dad, because I've been married before and have been with Josh 3 years at this point. And so, like when him and I first started dating, because he'd been married before, I'm like, just so you know, like I'm a wife sort of person. Like I want to be
You're a
married.
traditional
And
person.
my
That's
dad
yeah.
had said previous, I've watched you be the romantic always and want to, he's like, you were always boy crazy. You were always wanting this vision of what you believed, that life would look like in the marriage and the 2.5 kids and the dog. And, like that was always my ideal. And I don't think it's even changed, even with, and I won't say a failed marriage, even with, being divorced now
Sure.
and things, it's just life changes how it's going to look, I think. And it's okay because I'm a better parent. We have a better relationship because we're divorced, and that's okay. And so, now going in with Josh, like, yeah, I kind of want him to ask my dad if we're going to get
Yeah,
married. And I
there's
kind of
nothing
want
wrong
all that,
with
even though
that.
I'm
Yeah, I think that's,
45 and
you
even
know what?
though it's not my
That's
first
great.
marriage. And that's just, I want to go wedding dress shopping if I'm getting married. I want to do all those because there's just something about it. And I don't know what it is, about it all, but I can't
It
imagine.
maybe your relationship with your dad too as a woman is different because my dad and I were very, very close. But my dad had 7 children that he knows of, and he truly with 3 different women, and he, he wasn't necessarily a traditional person himself, but he always told me that I was the most independent of all of his kids, and that's like that's what he liked about me. And so I just feel like if somebody had gone to him and asked if they could marry me, he'd be like, "What are you asking me for? I don't, you know what I mean? I let
Yeah.
might. It's up to her." So I never felt like we had that kind of relationship where like it was just a different dynamic. But my in-laws, Cece's parents, Cece and I were both married before, and Cece was married before to a young woman who passed away at the age of 25. And she was a much more conservative, traditional, religious, very different than I am, and nothing.
Yeah.
She was deceased before I years before I even met Cece, so I don't know her. I don't have can't speak really much other than the little I know of her. I know we were very different people, um, and so I feel like just the sheer difference in like he or Cece had been married to this person for some time. They had a child together. She died very unexpectedly, very, very young. And then a couple of years later, then there's me, which is totally different. And I think that it did take my in-laws. Maybe I was much different than them than Cece's first wife was. Cece's first wife was much more like my mother-in-law, or more like them. But I can tell you now, 10 years later, I think that we have a perfectly fine relationship. My father-in-law's dead, but I guess, at this point I'm like, hey, I've been here this long. I'm for real. We may
Yeah.
not agree on like anything politically, socially, anything, and that's okay. But I'm the real, I'm the real deal now. So, it's just family dynamics. But I do think Ruth, she wants that more traditional kind of thing, and she's got children that just aren't traditional people, and it makes her feel like she's being cut out of things that they're not cutting her out of. They don't even consider her.
Yeah. But I also think that they can't share with her because she is so
Because she's
traditional.
not going to be
And
okay with
she just
anything.
keeps saying, but I'm fine with you being gay and I'm fine with what you're doing and I'm fine with
Yeah,
this. But I think her just saying it is not they'll get there. They're getting there and they're figuring it all out. I mean, what the heck? In 8 months of us
yeah.
watching this show, she has, this Brenda woman's come around. Her husband's died. She's found out her son is gay. Her daughter's been, stealing feet and getting arrested and like all this.
Stealing feet. I mean, yeah. Like
There is
what?
a lot that has happened in this poor woman. Like how she doesn't just like sit in a room and drink wine all day sometimes, I don't know, but a lot has happened. So yeah, we're gonna give her some credit. So we then we go back to the funeral home side of it, and Mitzi comes to visit. Mitzi from Kroehner with her little stupid accent and her little and
Hmm.
she comes in and she's like, well, you guys should come with me. And they're like, we're not going with you anywhere. And she's like, well, you guys have this huge fine because you put up billboards that didn't have your license number on them. It must be a California thing because there must be like if your business has a license, has to be on all your advertisement to make sure it's legit for the public or something. I have no idea. If you're in California and you're licensed, please let us know what the heck is up with that and if that's an actual.
I've never heard of that. I've heard of a lot of
Maybe they
weird
just-
things in different states. I've never heard of that.
maybe it's just they made it up for the thing, but
Maybe, yeah, I've
Um,
never heard of a license number have to be on a. They're like, what are they asking for? Like an establishment number or like, because they all have different license numbers. You know what I mean?
yes, they all do. Sorry, my daughter's just
Oh,
popped.
that's right.
She
No, I
wasn't
know.
supposed to be here. She stopped by the house quick. Okay, honey, love you. She's so cute. So yeah, so they have like we have license numbers as funeral directors, and then the establishments are licensed through the state.
Like a
So
business license.
I'm guessing it's some kind of practice like that. But so they must have, they put up an advertisement, didn't have a license number, they got a big, huge fine. And she's like, boys, I know you have a fine and I know you need business to make money to pay it. So come with me. And she takes them
Yeah.
on this private plane and they're drinking all their margaritas and they go to this like mansion place and there's more.
Okay, here's how
margaritas.
stupid I am. They say on the plane that they're going to Palm Springs, but they live in Los Angeles. Is Palm Springs in Florida or in California?
I think it's in Florida.
Like you're gonna fly 4.5 hours to go to a golf course and be back the same day? I don't think so.
What is the place called? What'd you say it was?
They just said it was Palm Springs. Oh, it is?
Yeah, Palm Springs. Is there one? There's something like it.
There's
Yeah,
Palm-
it's also Palm Springs, Florida. So there is a
Oh.
Palm Springs, Florida as well. So we're not crazy. No.
Oh,
So there is
let's
one.
say they went to California because there's no way you could go there and back in like a couple hours.
Yeah. And so Palm Springs in California is way inland.
Okay.
And it is, yeah, it's literally in the middle of, like, if you go straight towards Arizona from Los
Okay.
Angeles, you run into Palm Springs. So it's not like it's kind of weird that they flew there to me. Like, they're not going out to the ocean because they were near the ocean. They're not going,
Yeah, why would well, whatever. So they go to Palm Springs on this private jet with all these other people that have sold to Kroehner or whatever. And basically, she's just trying to smooch with them so that they sell their funeral home to her. And again, this is a whole other series itself, but I don't know why a corporation would be that interested in their funeral home. They're always having money troubles. They don't.
that
You know
is
what I-
one funeral home. It's like, it's one. Why are they giving so much effort? I don't
For the show, to show
Yeah.
that it happens. But in real life, the Fisher and Sons funeral home would not be that. They wouldn't be pushing them like this for that long to sell that place. That would be a place that a corporation would buy to close down
So
and
to
open
make their other
something
one better.
to make their other one. Yes.
'Cause, I mean, let's kind of check this out. So like call volume for Fishers. They never really say how many, but they have 2 licensed directors plus.
We've not seen
now
more than one at a
licensed.
time yet.
So that means you have 3 licensed. I typically say you can handle about 100 to 115, maybe more, maybe less with 1 license, depending on all your staff. So if you're going to get 2 licensees, you're usually in like the
Let's say 250 to be generous.
250 probably with 3 licenses.
To
I
be
would-
generous.
Yeah. So that's a good volume though. So I can see that they are maybe a solid competition for their other businesses that they would like to have that because it looks like they do pretty good calls. I mean, they're very traditional, not a lot of cremation, kind of thing. So yeah, they're, maybe a funeral home that somebody would really want to get. A nice location, whatever. When we go drive by this thing, we're gonna have to see where this is, even though it's not like we're going.
Well, it's not real, but
I know, but so
the problem is when you're
it-
buying a business, and again, we have to remember it's 25 years ago, we don't know. So like at least here in Denver, there's funeral homes that, nobody wants to buy, not even corporations, because they want $1 million for a piece of shit property that you'd have to tear down because it's so the cost of real estate is so high here. So I guess, a lot of that factors into it. The cost of the real estate is often the majority of the money. It's not the business itself. The business is a small amount of the purchase. The
business valuation is typically a lot in your pre-need because that's money that's not assured, but that is potential income that's already kind of set in place. So like there's a funeral home that got closed down near us, and it got closed down because the guy was stealing pre-need funds. So when it got closed down, they had to take all the pre-needs and they divided them out between all the other area funeral homes. And so I went and looked at it because they were trying to sell it as a funeral home. These people that bought it, these, slumlord type people. And I've heard that from numerous people. I'm not just making that term up. Yeah. They bought it thinking they were going to make a mint off of it because it's a funeral home. Well, you can't sell it as a funeral home. So I walk in to look at it because I was just curious of what it looked like inside, what condition, what was still in there. First of all, don't use my name a lot when we're talking in small groups.
Oh, isn't that weird?
Condescending. And he thought he was a big businessman. And the way he talked to me, I'm just like, oh, sir. So we look around and he's trying to sell this place. Oh, he's selling it like it's, his legit only job in this world is to sell this place. And we get towards the end and I said, so from what I've read, all the pre-needs are gone. He's like, oh yeah, but blah, blah, blah. All you have to do is, nothing he was saying was adding up. And I said, you do understand you can't sell this as a funeral home. And he said, what do you mean? I said, this is a building on lands. I said, you don't have half the equipment we need. There's no embalming machines. You don't have the vehicles. The fluid has all been sold off. You have no pre-needs. And I said, your pre-needs are what give valuation to your business. Otherwise, it's just a building with one or two kind of old rickety
stuff in it. Yeah.
I said, you have nothing to make it a funeral home. Needless to say, all the ceilings have holes in it. The whole place has to be stripped down and redone. I'm like, that's besides the point. And he was just like, oh, really? And I was like, wow. So, a building and property, yes, can be worth money to the right person.
Business.
You can't just sell it as a funeral home just because it used to be a funeral home at one point. So yeah, it's just very different. But so they go on this trip and they're trying to woo them with cocktails and men in little Speedos for Dave and, whatever. And they basically are like, yeah, no, we're good. And they quick fly them back once they say no again. And so that kind of is over for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, we go back to a little Rico part, which comes up a couple times in the next couple episodes. Him and his wife have bought this little house, which is a fixer-upper, had his cousin look at it, who is not like a legit.
He's not a real inspector.
No. So, they find all these problems after they buy it. And so he's doing work and we keep seeing Rico's wife like touch him, like linger with her hand on his arm or give him little glances. So it's like, what's going on with Rico's wife and his cousin and stuff while he's gone at work all day. So that kind of lingers. They kind of put that little nugget out there.
Yeah.
And leave it. So then you're wondering what's going on. We see Brenda has this dream where Nate comes into the bed and he kind of gets above her and he starts smothering her and is killing her. And it's like, could this be more literal for what he's feeling right now than this, honestly? So that's kind of a sad, realization that, what we're feeling with them is really legit. And this client shows up. Do you want to talk about the client?
No, I don't. I don't.
Her massage client shows up. And she has, I think we missed in the last episode or this episode where the sex worker girl and her were hanging. Was that before or after this? They're hanging out.
I think it was this episode. I don't know, but they were hanging out.
She got a call.
And she couldn't go to something. So Brenda's like, oh, I'll do it.
She needed a watcher because the guy liked to be watched and her watcher canceled. And Brenda's like, I'll go. I'll go. I'll just sit there. She's like, I'm fine. It's no big deal. So she goes and she sits and watches while this friend is
Yeah.
giving a blowjob to the client and is just sitting there. And then I can't remember where it's at. I didn't even make a note of it. And then Brenda, wakes up and somebody's knocking her door and she's like, oh crap, I have a massage client. So
And
she's
yeah.
massaging him and he flips over and he has an erection. And she's kind of looking at him and she thinks for a minute and then she reaches under and she gives him a hand job. And she's like, okay, afterwards, he's like, well, thank you. That was wonderful. And she's like, yeah, I can't see you as a client again. Goodbye. kind of thing.
Yeah. It was
So
weird.
she's walking a line. She's pushing this line with things, and Nate has no idea anything is going on, but she needs some excitement she is not getting from Nate. And I think
I
Nate
think
needs
she
something
just
she's not
needs
getting from her.
excitement all the time. And no matter what she was or wasn't getting from a person, she's, I think that she is a person that I don't think it's that she's not getting it from Nate. I think that it wouldn't matter. I think she would always need more or something sneaky happening or something exciting. And I think it is, I mean, yeah, they had their like dry spell or whatever, but again, that was her doing. I think
Yeah.
it's all her. I don't think it's Nate.
Well, she's kind of an adrenaline junkie, I think, in
That's what I'm trying to
essence.
say. Yeah,
She
there it is.
needs she needs the thrill of
That's what
something.
it is.
And
Yep.
they had that when they met, and they had a lot of chemistry and they were really sparking for a while, but then it got very traditional and very, we're going on a date and we're going to meet your friends and we're going to meet my friends and we're going to have
Yeah,
a
it
dinner
just
party
got
and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then without Billy around, I think Billy was her adrenaline for a while.
totally.
And now that he's gone, she is feeling super vanilla and like, I need something.
She's bored because it's just, I mean, it's any relationship, it's like life. People have jobs and families, and it's not every day isn't the most exciting romantic day of your life. And some people mistake that for a relationship going bad or being this or that. But it's just what happens in any relationship. I mean,
To
it happens
everybody.
to everybody in any situation. And she's just, and there are many, many, many people who can't handle that and then, do the thrill seeking or that kind of stuff. And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. But yeah, so she's doing these things Nate doesn't know about him. She's just asked him to marry her and then doing, these things with other people just for the thrill of it, which
Cheating
is,
on him. I mean, she's cheating, even though
yeah,
we kind of wonder if he cheated with Lisa when he was up in Seattle.
well,
Kind of plant that
that's
seed
true.
like, So you see both of them toying with stepping outside their relationship because they're both not getting what they need. And the fact that he hasn't told her about his health situation
Yeah.
is a pretty big red flag there, because if I was told that, the first person I would tell would be Josh. I mean, I would run straight
Ah,
to tell him because I would need his support because he's my person. And so I can't imagine living with this person and not having them know about all this.
no, this relationship is not right.
It's terrible.
But it is. It's very
But
toxic
they
and
still love each other in
they
a
do.
weird way. Yeah, they're both, I think, just, oh, it's a lot. Well, then we see the widow of our nice man who fell off the boat at the beginning. She comes in and Nate's there and she says, is he in there? Because the casket's up front and it's closed. And he says, yes. She said, well, I want to see him. And he's like, I don't recommend it at all. And she goes, no, I'm seeing him. I was married to him for so many years. Like, I have to see him. And he opens the casket. Like, if you did not put that body in the casket,
You better not.
you don't open it because you don't know what in the heck the situation is in that casket. Like, that's the most terrifying thing. Like, can we open the foot? Oh crap, what's in the foot? Like, did
First of
somebody,
all, if you're taking a service over for somebody else, you look at the body. I don't care what.
just so you know what's in there. And if this guy
No.
is literally in pieces, he's not going to be laid into the casket. He's typically going to still be
Okay.
in a body bag if he is bits, pieces, and everything. So I mean, they make it like he's in a suit and he's laying in there and he just has some minor, I don't know, they just don't make it out to be what it seems like. But so they show kind of from the head end of the casket, kind of behind, as if you're looking out from the opening at Nate and her standing.
Yeah.
And she is like, starts kind of almost laughing, and Nate's kind of like, what's going on? And she says, you finally got what you deserve and you can't hit me or touch me again. And this whole emotion comes out because I think she needed to see that he was dead
Yeah.
to fully know that he was gone and would never ever come for her again.
Yep.
And it was like, I have goosebumps because it's I can't imagine being in a relationship that abusive that you can finally feel that free from, but you feel it in that moment. And it's
Yeah.
pretty big because I think you don't see that coming.
No, you don't see that coming at all. So yeah, I mean, that's it really.
Yeah. So that kind of ends. So that whole storyline was kind of brief in this one. And then Dave's friend, his vanilla relationship buddy, who keeps pushing like, well, if your mom's boyfriend was at dinner, why wasn't I invited to dinner? Kind of calling himself his boyfriend, even though they've been literally hanging out 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
That's
You know
that.
what? That's gay people. I don't know what to tell. We just can't be real about it. That you know, I see you, but it's
I
like,
see you.
don't come for me. I know, but it's like,
That's hilarious.
yeah, it is. It's just, it's a kind of one of those little things. It's not true for everybody, but it's definitely
Well,
true. But
you
yeah, I
know,
mean, they've seen each other a couple weeks, and he's like, "Well, why wasn't I invited to this dinner? Why
yeah,
wasn't I?" And I think Dave is just, first of all, it's not been very long, so I don't think it's weird at all.
2 weeks.
But
Yeah.
even if it wasn't weird, I think it's just a showing that Dave's not really that into that really. It's
No.
something to do, but it's not this like he knows it's not.
And dude says, I love you. And Dave's like, thank you. And he's like, oh, and he's like, you're nice, but I'm in love with someone else. Even though at this point, Keith has told him, stay away from me. I don't want to ever talk to you. Kind of after Keith had shot the guy on duty. He had shot this guy who was beating up a woman and pulled a gun on him. So he shot him. He came
Yep.
over, kissed Dave, and they spent the night, and then he's gone in the morning, and Dave's like, what's going on? And he's like, we can't see each other ever again. You need to not be in my life. I need to figure this out. And then Dave's like, I love somebody. Like I still, we know, like they're gravitating back together. It's like the cutest love story.
Yeah.
Oh, until Schitt's Creek gay love story. Like, oh, I love the love story in Schitt's Creek, just so you know.
I
But,
know.
and then Ruth gets in a fight with her sister, and they have kind of a moment in this battle, and then Ruth.
But how common is this? Because her sister says, or Ruth says, well, you weren't there to help with the grandmother or whatever. And then the sister says, well, you wouldn't let me. And I've seen that so many times.
The martyr, the martyr.
The martyr. That's exactly what it is. It's the person that maybe you're taking care of the aging parents, maybe you're whatever it is, but you also want to be in charge and control. So you're not letting other people really help you, but then you're getting mad that nobody's helping you. I've seen that many times.
Playing the martyr a lot. And that's what Ruth has done. And I couldn't do this because I had my responsibilities, and you went off, running through the world. And her sister kind of responds. And Ruth, I think, has this stark realization that the grass isn't always greener. Like her sister isn't living this perfect, wonderful life. Her sister couldn't have a baby and she couldn't have children. And Ruth got the children her sister wanted. And her sister wanted kind of the normalcy, but she couldn't have it. And Ruth was like, I had no idea that this even was a thing. And so it's a really the grass is not greener moment, I think, for maybe both of them, that your life isn't what I thought it was and your life wasn't what I thought it was. And maybe we need to have some grace for each other and appreciate who each other is just as people, not the whole situation of your life kind of thing.
Yep.
and the episode ends with kind of a really nice moment between Ruth and Claire, when she goes in her bedroom with her box of art projects. Do you want to tell kind of
I
how?
don't remember. I'm like,
Oh, dang it.
I'll remember when you
So,
start talking about
yeah,
it.
because
Sorry.
remember, so the Aunt Sarah had gone in her room and saw this art on
Yes.
her wall, and had she like comments, she's like, "You're a natural, like you have this
Yeah.
artistic ability."
Yep.
And Claire's like, "I never even, like, I just found that one in a box somewhere
In
and
the
so I took it
dumpster.
out
Yeah.
and put it up." And um she talks about it at the table, and Ruth kind of is like, "Oh." And you think that maybe Ruth doesn't realize it's there, but then at the end, Claire's in her room, chatting on her AOL on her
Or
computer.
AOL. Yes. God,
And
it's so
her
real.
mom comes in with this box and she says, "Hey, Claire, I want to show you something." And she has saved every art
Oh, yeah.
project that Claire has done. And so they start going through this box, and her mom kind of is, "Well, that's when you did this, and this is when you did this." And the whole time Ruth has known this.
Yeah.
She just never recognized it and said it out loud. She has just appreciated it in silence.
Yeah.
Or Sarah announced it to everybody and praised her, and she saw how Claire reacted to that praise. And I think Ruth realized, well, maybe I should be vocal and let her know how I feel.
Hmm.
So we see these big growth moments of her realizing my approach probably isn't the best.
Yeah.
And you
Save all your kids' art projects.
So here's my thing. So I literally, there's a box over across my room because my daughter came to me and said, "This is my art box, and I'm putting all my art projects in it."
Oh,
So
there
there's
you
ones I do
go.
save quite a few because my mom was a saver, and I do save quite a few. There's ones I get rid of, and ones because I have, I mean, drawers upon drawers upon drawers. If I kept everything, there'd be no space. I keep getting that dang ad on my Facebook feed or wherever pops up about that company where you fill the box with art, you send it to them, and they send
Yeah.
a book of them all scanned in. I think I'm going to do that with
That's, yeah.
because they are special, and I will want these things one day to look, like, I mean, just like opening my drawer. Like I have things everywhere
Yeah.
that are little
Same.
notes and love notes and pictures, and I hate to get rid of them because I am a worst case scenario thinker. My sister's daughter was killed when she was 7, and I think about if how she, like,
Yeah.
my mind is I would always think, I wish I had one more art project, or I wish I could hear her voice. So whenever I tell the girls,
Yeah.
"Please be quiet right now," all I can think is, "Oh my gosh, if they weren't here tomorrow, I'm going to wish that they were here to be loud and noisy and annoying me." And so I do think about those things, and it makes me more conscious of it.
Yeah.
But I also can't save every dang little art thing that exists. And so she understands that. But so she says, "This is my box. When I think they're special, they're going in it." And so I do say,
That works. That's a good one. That's a good one. I have this little plate that I don't know if you could see it, but I held it and I made that at one of
"Ooh,
those little, like, you go and pick out the thing and paint it and they fire it kind of
yes,
thing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome."
I've got a lot of stuff, but I can't keep everything.
There's just
No.
not enough. I have 2 totes, I think, at this point I've saved of both of their stuff throughout, there's teeth or random this,
Yeah.
that. And some people are like, "Why would you ever save teeth?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, why do
I
people
saved all
save,
my pregnancy tests.
like, why do you save umbilical cord
I
stubs?
don't know.
People just, why do you save first haircuts? Like,
I did
it's
that.
sentimental to people for different reasons.
I have a baby box where I don't have I have a baby book, but I stopped it at like 7 months. And then, but I have this box where I have like the outfit she came home in and like all the ultrasound pictures and I have all my pregnancy tests in there, which is dumb because I kept taking pregnancy tests like repeatedly.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I have like the dates on them, that's gross, but I do. I have a bag of them in there. And I've got like her favorite little toy when she was a baby. And I just, just all those little things in a box. Yeah, but her art, I should save it in like one spot, but usually I'll like hang it up and then like something that's in the back of the pile I'll get rid of because
Yeah.
then I always feel guilty getting rid of it. But I mean, They just make so much stuff.
So much. And she is my artistic one. And so she makes,
Yep.
like when she comes to the funeral home to visit, she will make little pictures and leave them on desks everywhere. Where my older
Her
will
too.
leave notes like, I was here, hope you have a good day.
Oh, that's
And the
sweet.
other leaves pictures. So, they're both sentimental in just different ways. And so, I just kind of embrace what both of them have. But yeah, I mean, like this, she just made a little,
Oh.
I've got roses are red things, little poems everywhere. And it's just how they are. And,
I have this little thing on my fridge. It's in the house, but it says, I love you. Have a great day, mommy. And it's on this weird paper. And I remember I said to her, I said, this is weird. This is really unusual paper. Where did you get this? She goes, oh, it's a dried up butt wipe. So if I love you, have a great day, mommy, and Sharpie on a dried up butt wipe.
which is that
That'll
weird,
keep forever.
like, it's almost
Yeah,
like
like where did you get
spongy,
this?
but
Yeah,
not.
like this is
It's
where did
so
you get this
good.
paper? Oh, it's a dried up butt wipe. Oh, good.
Oh my God, I love it.
Well, whatever. But I have it. It's funny.
That's so funny. I love it. Yeah, they're special. It's amazing, but it's hard to know how much to get, especially photos. I mean, our parents had,
Oh, they had albums,
but I have
scrapbooks.
thousands.
Oh yeah,
Like, how
same.
does anybody keep memories for kids anymore in a logical way?
I
So
don't know, but tell us if y'all know because we sure don't.
this
I've got
literally stresses me out sometimes when I start thinking about it. I'm
well,
like,
because now instead of a camera where you take one or two pictures, you take 75 of the same thing. And then you're like, oh, is my face better in this one or this one? So you can't get rid of any of them
oh,
because you got to go through them still. And then you end up with 6,000 on your phone like me. And, 20 of them are of the same thing. Just
yep.
you take 20 pictures of the same thing instead of
And
two
then
on
who
your
has
camera.
time to sit and literally go
Not
through
me.
photos to delete out all the stuff you need to delete out to make more room? So then you have a
Yeah.
cloud filled with
Yep. Same.
craziness. And then I'm like, I tell the kids about something, they're like, show me the picture. I'm like, well, it's not on my phone. It's in the cloud now, or it's on a Dropbox that your dad has, or it's trying to make everything in a very memorable place. And I don't know what the perfect answer is. I don't know if there is one, but God bless. Yeah, it's crazy. So let us know if you have good ideas on how to commemorate the life of your children. I don't even know. But thank you. We're so rabbit hole at
Yeah,
this
we are.
point. Well, thank you guys for joining us for episode 6.
Yeah.
Next week will be episode 7 in the garden. So yeah, this will
See
be
you
good.
then.
Or back
Yeah.
to the garden next week. It's next week's a good one. I love next week's episode. It brings up some good talking topics.
Yes.
So make sure to join us back here next week, guys. Leave your comments below, message us, let us know what you want to hear about more or what questions you have, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.